when the 610 number was confirmed, and that number got increased at the 11th hour for various reasons. And then email came in, and the signing was 5 minutes away. It sunk in, you know? It sunk in terms of like, I don't know, I was trying to get tears that didn't come, but like, I was happy. Business is a living organism, and I'm willing to fire myself for the business. I have no emotional attachment if someone doesn't serve the business. You've got to keep your irrational fears in check, right? That's what I would have done differently, because that's all it was. I mean, there's people I've talked to, you know, within our circles, like, and they're about to sell their business because they think they're about to lose it. I'm like, don't do it. You're not in the right mindset, and you're going to regret this later. They don't listen. They do it, and they come back and say, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. It's okay. You got to make your own mistakes.
Yeah.
Do you have a reason to exist? If not, don't do it. You have to be a good person, good cultural fit, and bring skills to the table.
Welcome to the stage, AJ Patel.
What's up, buddy?
Thank you for being here. Good to see you. So, it's kind of difficult not to start by acknowledging the fact that you just had a major milestone 2 weeks ago. You sold Zesty $610 million. Clap that up. Really quickly, just tell me how you're feeling 2 weeks later.
Same, you know? I mean, I've had the realization that this was going to happen probably for 2 years, not this big, but it felt good when it happened, like felt great when it happened, and now it's just like, what's next kind of thing?
Yeah.
So it's good though.
So is there disappointment on the other side of that? Like expecting it, did you expect it to be different?
No, because
No?
I've had other exits, and there was a point when I expected money to make me feel different, and it didn't. And you know, so it's like, it's a journey that you just realize it's meant to happen, and you feel good about it. But it's not like, I'm at a point in my life where I don't have ebbs and flows in emotions, so kind of more, you know, here.
Yeah, it's just like Sam was saying yesterday. All of his work is just to stay in like an emotional neutral place.
Yeah.
Because otherwise his erratic emotions are going to take him on track, off track, on track, off track.
Yeah, and been there.
You've been there, is that what you said?
Yeah.
So we'll come back to this exit, but I wanted to go back to the beginning of your journey because it feels like yesterday that you were just starting, right? It feels so recent. You had a really rapid progression in your journey, and there had to be moments along the way that changed something. So would you kind of take us back to the beginning?
Sure. So I'll go all the way back in the beginning. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a kid. My parents, entrepreneurs for 30 years and going. And high school is kind of when I started my hustling. You know, sold movies, started a web hosting company for a couple of years where I was making $5,000 a day and had people from India employed around the clock. But that's when I learned my first lesson, which is not to take money out of the business to buy stupid shit like clothes or cars. Served me well though. And then college, same thing, continued on internet marketing. You know, I would always try to find ways to make money because it was kind of in my DNA. So senior year of college, I was playing Facebook's Zynga's Texas Hold'em app in an internship since I hate jobs. And I lost the chips that they give you, and then I was like, well, that was fun. Let me go figure out a way to play this again. So I bought about $250,000 worth of chips for $5, and I was like, okay, if I want this, there must be other people that want it. So I go on eBay and check, and it's like 1 million chips being sold for $37. Zynga's selling it for $100, give or take. So I message everyone on the leaderboard on the app and say, hey, you want to sell your chips? I'll buy it. And that's how I got started. So one guy sold me 100 million for $1,000, and one on eBay sold that for 37 a piece. Anyways, long story short.
So you're arbitraging fake poker chips.
Exactly. Huge market.
This is like crypto before crypto.
Yeah, I had my roommates working around the clock. When I started my website, I was like #1 for Facebook poker chips, and I was making $3,000 to $5,000 a day. You know, so it was a good time in senior year, right? And then graduated in '09. I sold that because I figured Zynga was going to come after people, and they did. So I got rid of that. And in 2009, I graduated, degree in finance, told my parents, hey, I'm going to figure something out. I don't know what it is, but you know, I've had these one-hit wonders for 10 years, and so let me go try my hand with the 6 figures that I have in the bank account. So I tried everything, really shit businesses like hookah bar to staffing agency, with a scammer, so I left that. Real estate and Facebook game as well. And 2 years later, I was broke, depressed, and
how old are you at this point?
22, 23.
Okay, so like early to mid 20s, and you're just like idea after idea after idea
Exactly.
after idea. And that was kind of a theme that came up yesterday. Is like every person who has eventually broken out had like lots of swings at the bat.
Yep.
And I just wanted to capture that because sometimes we get romantic that this idea needs to be the idea, whereas sometimes
Like you need to get some failures out of the way before you hit pay dirt.
Yeah.
And it's easy to look at what you've done. Like we have this rule, Matt and I used to joke. You say like, rule number 1, don't bet against AJ. I remember like a year or so ago, Matt called me. I was in the Austin airport going somewhere. And he's like, AJ's doing this thing where he's buying GameStop stock. Do you know anything about this? I was like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And then we're like, well, don't bet against AJ. What does he know that we don't? So it's just like, and I tell you that because it's important to note that you didn't just like come out of the womb knowing things. Like you had this section of your life in which you were trying this, flipping this, doing this agency, doing this thing, and ultimately leading you to something that started, did well, and continued to grow. So forgive me for interrupting.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, especially in Indian culture, right? Like when I was struggling, like people shit on you, and you get a reality check of, you know, you have to kind of believe in yourself, even when everyone else doesn't. So for me, when I got a job in corporate America in 2012, so I was there for 2 years, I'd have to remind myself that, you know, I was the 1% in high school and I was the 1% in college, and I can do it again. And that alternative, being in corporate America, was never an option, right? I just wouldn't let my mind get there. And I think your mind plays such an important role. And, you know, now knowing some of the materials like manifestation and stuff like that, like, I didn't know about it, but that's essentially what happened, right? And so,
Why did you join corporate America when you had all these side hustles?
because I was broke, I lost it all,
So,
and depressed.
you're broke. So what?
And I had to tell my parents I'm doing something in my life.
What I see. So you had some things that were producing significant revenue. You also sold a couple of those things. What happened that took you from, you know, you had something going to being broke and depressed? What changed there?
Well, the Facebook chips thing that was producing income, I had to get rid of it before they started suing people.
Yeah.
Thank God. And from there, so I only had about 150, 200,000 saved up, and I just started a bunch of dumb shit. And I was saying yes to everything because I didn't know how I was going to make money. I didn't know what was going to make me money. And so, you know, this guy I met at a poker bar, it's like, hey, I want to start a staffing agency. I'm like, that sounds like a cool idea. Let's go to Atlanta. And again, turns out he was a scammer. I'm like, fuck this, I'm out. So it's just like, I was lost. I was super lost, but I was willing to try and continue to keep trying. And then I also gave some money to my brother to open a liquor store, so that because my parents helped him. So that was the last of it. And I was like, well, I was not a good spender. I mean, not a good money manager, so probably had $15,000, $20,000 in credit card debt. So I had to do something.
Yeah. So you went from probably feeling like hot shit in college.
Oh yeah. After making $35,000 my first job, I was like, fuck. I used to make that in like a few days.
35, is that what you said?
A year, 35,000 a year.
You took a $35,000 a year job.
Yep, good old days.
What was the job?
I was a back office accountant. I was great at interviewing. I was a horrible employee.
Yeah.
Really bad. I still don't remember what the fuck I did.
And you were in that for 2 years.
So that job, year and a half, and then I went to an agency as a project manager. Again, I didn't know jack shit about what I was doing. I would just, fuck around with the clients, fudge the timeline, and say I'm doing these things. And I was a pretty bad project manager.
I didn't realize that part of the story because I didn't realize that you took an entry level job.
Yeah.
Right? And then you became project manager, one step up. Mm-hmm. And I when you were in corporate America, I assumed that it was kind of a fancy job.
No.
So I actually didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah.
But the whole time you're sitting there thinking like, I've done it once, I'll do it again.
Exactly.
Don't know how this is going to go. This is temporary.
Exactly. Yep. And that's what kept me going. And 13 stumbled on the Amazon thing. Put $3,000 on my credit cards, launched the first product. 2 weeks later, it was doing $1,000 a day. So after like 10 years of on and off failure, I knew this was it. Pattern recognition, Put $40,000 on my credit cards, went all in, set a goal for $1 million a month within 12 months. And every day I'd ask myself the question is, what I'm doing today going towards that goal? And if not, cut it out, i.e. top line revenue, right? 13 months later, hit it. From the free cash flow of that company, I started 4 other brands. And around this time, I'm opportunistic, right? I have no passion for solving world peace here. It's just like these categories are open. I'm gonna go, I know this lever, I'm gonna pull it. I'm gonna pull it till it stops working. And
I remember that time. Like you were winning in a lot of spaces, but you were not. You were stretched. Like you were really rolling it all back in. I remember you were living very modestly, and you were just plowing it. You had all your chips.
yeah, I mean, I didn't pay myself for a year. Again, going back to a lesson I learned, I never took out money, right? And so did that, but then after the $1 million a month and the skincare brand, I'm like, I want to do something that kind of outlives me. I don't want to have a one-hit wonder. I've done that for so long. And so didn't know what a CEO was, didn't know how to build teams, hired a CEO for the skincare brand, smooth talker, great communicator. And I bought his bullshit, and he said, we're going to get to 100 million. And then for a year, from 2015 to 16, I kind of checked out. I'm like, I hired a CEO, I got to let him do his job. Clearly, he knows better than I do. And when I, put my head up, I realized that we were talking about getting to 100 million, but we never talked about the how, and we were doing the same shit that I had done. So it's like, all right, I got to step in. He's the wrong person. I fell for it. It's okay. Fired him.
And I want to emphasize here, that was a hard time. Right?
It was.
That was.
I was breaking down kind of time. I was dying kind of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember because I knew this person, and there was obviously a relationship that you guys had built up, and that's a hard Band-Aid to pull off.
You mean firing him?
Yeah.
Oh, that was easy. Well, because I look at it as like business is a living organism. And I'm willing to fire myself for the business. I have no emotional attachment if someone doesn't serve the business. So with him, I mean, it was a little hard because, again, he's a manipulator, and I'm naive at this time. So it was a rough 2 to 3 months to get him out.
Yeah.
But getting him out was the best decision, but also the toughest thing for my personal life because I had to fire half the people. I don't know jack shit about accounting. I learned accounting by fire. I learned the business by fire, essentially, at this point. And I go from being a horrible leader the first 3 years, and I'm growing kind of this is like the good inflection point of my life where I'm like continuing to grow significantly from a personal standpoint, leadership standpoint, but also I'm like mentally fucked for the next year because scarcity mindset kicked in. You know, when that was my business, and when it declined by more than 50%, and I'm now in it to turn it around, I'm like, what if I don't have anything after this? You know, what if I lose it all? Did I do all of this for nothing, all of these 13, 14 years? Am I going to go back to corporate America? So all of these irrational fears kind of kick in. And at the same time, some of my other brands are taking off. So, well, I can't sell the skincare company on a decline. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to take chips off the table and get security, right? And so I got on this sprint of trying to sell some of my companies. And one of them was, I took roughly, I mean, at the end I owned about 40% when we sold Zesty 4 weeks ago, but I took about 60% off the table when I was doing 25 million run rate. Literally the next day, I knew I made a mistake. I was like, that's a $250 million brand. I fucking knew it. So it's like I couldn't see the forest from the trees during that phase of my life. And it was tough. It was tough. I had emotional breakdowns often. I was stressed out like crazy. And so, you know, I stayed involved in Zesty for about a year or so.
And AJ, what would you have done differently now in that time?
I would know how to control my emotions, and I would be more sane, because, you know, I wouldn't have, at that time, you've got to keep your irrational fears in check, right? That's what I would have done differently, because that's all it was. I mean, there's people I've talked to, you know, within our circles, like, and they're about to sell their business because they think they're about to lose it. I'm like, don't do it. You're not in the right mindset, and you're going to regret this later. They don't listen. They do it, and they come back and say, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. It's okay. You got to make your own mistakes.
Yeah, there's like when you make decisions from the scarce place, you end up getting scarcity.
Exactly.
But if you are in an abundant place, you end up making the decisions and doing the things that bring more of that.
Yep.
And it sounds like you were in a place where you were so afraid that the kingdom was about to crumble that you did things that were, you know, at least suboptimal.
Yeah,
right?
To say the least.
So you took some chips off the table to try and get a foundation.
And then I felt like shit as soon as I got the money, because I realized it was a mistake. But what I'm glad I did, because everything kind of in my mind now happens for a reason, because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it again. That, you know, I didn't game a system that wasn't at the right place, the right time. I a little bit played into it. And so that was a catalyst for me trying to look for another opportunity, which created High Key, which again is this kind of similar business I'm really proud of, and kind of gives me conviction that, you know, I can do it again and again and again.
And is it fair to say that High Key has had the fastest growth trajectory of all the other brands?
For the first 3 years, yes.
Yeah.
And that's how old we are.
Yeah. Okay. So yes.
Yeah.
How many are familiar with High Key snacks, by the way? Yeah.
Yeah. I walk into Costco and see the display, and I'm like, yes, AJ did it, right? So, and that was, what was different about that brand than the others? Because that wasn't, like, you didn't look at the Amazon data and decide that was a play. And you had done that with Zesty, you had done that with Insta, but you didn't do that with High Key. So what was different in your approach there?
Well, I saw the macro trends, Google, Amazon too. But I saw that my thesis was, what Zesty taught me was great product market fit matters. If you want to create something huge, product market fit matters, right? So something unique. Do you have a reason to exist? If not, don't do it, right? And so High Key, when I looked around, it's like I have a sweet tooth. I love sweet shit. And I love Quest bars. I love my cookies. And so when I was looking for, you know, something like that, I saw a couple of competitors where their product genuinely sucked. And I was like, okay, if I can make a good product, a great product, then I can beat this market. So I didn't know jack shit about food and beverage. I cold called 200 people and met someone that was running a co-man facility that had a knack for innovation. I'm like, hey, John, this is what I can do. This is my background. Jump ship. And convinced him to join me. And I was working with a consultant for 6 months, had a broken, moldy recipe, large one. And I told him about it. Within 2 weeks, he gave me the mini cookies that we launched with. And I was like, all right. And then when we launched on online on Amazon was the first, and D2C. Within 2 weeks, we beat Oreos and Chips Ahoy. And that was enough proof that I needed to go all in from kind of what, again, my mindset is like learning from Zesty. If you got something, go all in. So put fuel to the fire, build out the team. 6 months later, we're nationwide in Target. Target, we're beating velocities by 6x category average. And then from there, we just started running the tables, right? So Whole Foods, Kroger, Costco, everywhere. So now it's just kind of running the tables a little bit and getting focused around the brand and all the stuff.
Did you raise money for that project?
$5.5 million my money first.
Okay.
Funny story about that. I was actually made a dumbest mistake. So John was part of the co-man facility. And I thought, if we could get to scale, maybe vertical integration wouldn't be a bad thing. And so on a handshake, because that co-man was losing money, and he was willing to give us the keys if we just took over and took over the burn rate. So on a handshake, I gave him $1 million. Hey, let's cover the burn rate, we'll launch it, and we'll make a profit here, we'll make a profit here. Holy shit. Let me tell you, contract manufacturing, never get into that. I was losing $250,000 a month, my capital, and it's like for 3-4 months, I was like, John, I'm calling John, I'm like, John, I can't do this. I'm so, million is still $1 million. And then I'm like, fuck the co-man business, let's get into the branded business, give him back the keys, I can't do this. So yeah, I almost thought we were not gonna have a business, but it took off, thankfully.
So, I asked you about raising money for Hikey because I thought you did a raise in the business.
I did. So as COVID hit, I raised a few $1 million at a much higher valuation.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted someone strategic on the cap table.
It was for strategic reasons.
Yeah, a little bit and a little bit of capital because I had also blown some of my earlier liquidity and made some mistakes.
Okay.
And so, but he was strategic in a sense, but my caveat was I want no strings attached investment. No board seats, nothing.
You raised on your terms.
My terms, right? Because I had the money and I could do it. I don't need your capital.
Yeah, I asked that because I'm curious about the difference in your approaches of bootstrapping, from 2013 to 2016, when you're just pouring everything in, versus having some dry powder, your own or somebody else's. What the difference in the approach was for those businesses, or if they were mostly the same. How would you comment on that?
I mean, some categories are just going to require more capital, right? So food. I mean, we were in an investment period. Margins in food is lower. So that was out of kind of necessity to put fuel to the fire, so to speak.
Get customers.
Exactly. Scale, build out the team. I mean, we went from 4 people to within 18 months had a team of 60. My payroll is pretty huge on that team. And that was done intentionally because I want to build, not for today, I want to build for the future. I want to get the scalability and the talent as opposed to hiring in the arrears, so to speak, right? And that's because I've done that too, built a lean team, done it slow, it takes years. And I'm more excited about how do we scale, but not at the expense of not having a good business model.
Yeah.
It has to turn profit or you don't have a business model, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, when you were hiring that CEO and building that team, you were doing it, figuring it out, right? I remember when you had one person who was helping you with systems, was basically your operations manager, and then you ended up hiring the CEO at Insta, and you're we're learning how to build infrastructure. Now, when you run high key, you're not scrambling as much anymore. You go from a few people to 60 people in a short window of time. What have you learned about building teams that you didn't know when you got into this game, or that when you were building the team the first time?
It's a great question. Early on, I didn't know jack shit. So I think experience has been my biggest, the biggest lesson, because we've hired now across all the companies probably 300 to 500 people. Early on, you make the dumbest mistakes, like you prioritize skill over cultural fit. So now
Say it again. You prioritize,
like skills over cultural fit, right? Like I used to do that.
and you say that's a mistake now.
Yeah, 100%.
Tell me
right?
why.
I.e., like I used to have someone on the skincare company, really negative person, and really like he, very political about the way he communicated, and just not a good cultural fit. Made everyone feel like shit. I kept him on because he delivered value. Right?
He had the skills.
Exactly. Now, as I look at it, you have to be a good person, good cultural fit, and bring skills to the table, right?
Are they in that order?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Because if you're not a good person, then,
I got you.
So cultural, they have to align with our values a lot more than before. And I think now that we've, I have my HR person that's been with me for 6 years, so she's really good at filtering from the top and only letting the decent people come to the hiring managers. And even then, we go through like 3 interviews to make sure we all agree.
Yeah. So the lesson there was hiring for culture over skills rather than prioritizing skills.
100%.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What else have you learned about team building that has allowed you to have infrastructure that doesn't collapse?
You've got to, so for me, I know my strengths and weaknesses really well. And so I will mask my weaknesses with great leaders that have their core competency and strengths, right? So my partner, CEO of Heike, great, loves managing people, an inspirational leader, very honest, and we can disagree and commit, but we can call each other out in a very respectful way, and he knows retail. I don't want to know retail, I don't care about retail. You know retail, you do retail. So it's kind of like just knowing, for me at least, the strengths and weaknesses and masking those weaknesses, and it's worked really well for me. My leadership style is unique. I am not kumbaya, I'm not going to give you positive reinforcement. So these people that I have, that I work closely with, don't need that. But they know me, and I invest in them, and I take care of them in the ways that they're motivated by, and I'll build personal relationship with them. And likewise, they take it down.
So the interesting thing that you're commenting on there is that you hire and focus on leaders.
Yeah.
Right? Like you are not hiring for somebody deep on the org chart at this point. You're hiring for leaders.
Yeah, and then they do their job.
I'm asking this selfishly because this is a skill that I want to learn. So when did that switch for you? Because the first time you did it, it didn't go how you wanted it to, and you ended up coming in and taking over. But you stepped up to the plate again, and you did it again. So what did you do differently after making this mistake that you regretted?
I'm trying to think.
You know what I'm asking? Because you're commenting on hiring leaders.
Yeah.
But the first time you did it,
I didn't have leaders. I didn't have leaders in that company, right? Like I had to coddle a lot of people, and I can't coddle people. I know that's not my skill set. I think it's just like there are a couple of people that I've worked with for years, which I've really admired our working relationship. And it's just kind of like I learned what works for me, and it's different for everyone, right? What works for me is I don't want to manage a team. I don't like the day-to-day meetings that much. And so it's like, if I can trust you to do your job, and chemistry matters. So for me, with a CEO, chemistry matters a lot, because without that, you're not going to have a good fit. And now, for me to trust him to manage, say, the CMO, because I don't want to deal with that shit. I'll manage e-commerce kind of departments here. Supply chain will kind of divide and conquer. So it's just, I don't know. I don't know the answer. It's just like, it's happened organically for me where I've realized this is what works for me, and this is the type of cultural that we want to build based on the values we've created.
Well, what I'm processing as you're saying that is that that first CEO that you hired provided a lot of contrast for what you actually wanted in a leader.
Yeah.
At that time, you hired somebody who came with CEO credentials that you trusted, and it didn't go well. But it gave you clarity for what you
Not to do.
actually needed
Yeah.
in your next hires and leaders. How do you find those leaders at this point?
Force Brands is great for C-levels.
What's that?
Force Brands.
Force Brands?
Yeah, so it's a CPG recruiting firm.
Okay.
So I'll go to them, or basically the C-levels is definitely recruiting firms. And they're not in Orlando. So, I'm open to remote. And so we still, our CEO as an example, came from Asian Nutrition. Our CEO came from, he was CEO of Australasia General Mills, so a CMO came from Four Sigmatic. So basically kind of poaching talent from other places.
Yeah. And that sounds expensive. So how do you think about compensating leaders?
Market rate.
Market rate?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be specific because these are my people.
Yeah, sure, I understand. But what I'm asking is, like, there's sometimes we hear stories about people who come from a big company who have a great resume that want a very healthy salary, and yet their skill set doesn't match that of somebody who's just young and scrappy,
Yep.
right? And when you're in startup mode and you have like a 7-figure business, the idea of going and finding somebody who's run that just seems risky when you could hire somebody that's young and scrappy. So I want to know from you, like, what is the difference in those two approaches?
I think you've got to be on a good opportunity. You have to be honest with yourself, what kind of opportunity you're on. Like for me, this was an opportunity worth going all in on. And now when you describe a 7-figure opportunity, as an example, I'm just saying, if you don't have a good product market fit that's not going to scale omni-channel, I don't know if I'd hire the team I've hired,
Yes, got it.
right? Like, I'd be okay with the project manager and like hustling and lean, and then if something works out and you see an opportunity in a white space in retail, then maybe you hire it, right? But otherwise, I wouldn't go all in.
That makes a lot of sense. So the difference there is with High Key, this is a multi-9-figure opportunity.
Yep.
So you're hiring for
Based
the
on-
multi-9-figure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with another brand that you think may top out at $10 million, you're building a $10 million team,
Yep.
right? I'm curious about, I wonder if the expectation creates that. Like in your mind, you are so convinced that High Key is a multi-9-figure opportunity, you have made that happen, right? You saw product market fit. Plenty of people could have seen product market fit and only built a $10 million business.
Yep.
And you've done more than that.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm curious how much of your approach has affected that. I'm just wondering that out loud. There's something I've been wanting to ask you since we texted about it. I've been dying to ask you this question. And it was that you told me that you've reached a point in your life in which you are happier and clearer and feel more purposeful than you ever have. And these are words I had never heard you say, right? There was a long journey to getting there. And I really would like for you to unpack what has flipped there. And it would be easy to say, well, of course, you're breaking records. Well, of course, you're leading in the
Yeah.
space. But I've seen more of the internal journey and know that you didn't have the same peace, satisfaction, and joy that you've arrived at now. So what changed?
Chad, my coach, was the biggest catalyst in my life. I would say I had him from 2017 to 2021, and I think personal growth unlocks everything in life. And so for me, going through that tough time of 2016, 17, 18, I was beating myself up for, I exited too early. I could have I could have done this myself. And all of these things, as opposed to now, it's just like that happened for a reason. And without that, I wouldn't have this company. I wouldn't have the conviction to start other companies. And the experience I have now is so vastly different and great in its own way. And it's just been working on myself.
Would you say that again? Because you said that quickly. You said, I forget your exact words, but it worked out and it's been great in just a different way. Explain what you mean by that.
Like, so as an example, if I hadn't sold Zesty and I would have sold Zesty, like took chips off the table and would have sold it, 4 weeks ago, that's probably the only thing I would have done. I would have been happy. I would have been really happy with it too. But I'm also really happy with the fact that not only was I able to participate, see that journey through, but I got to do it again with this other company. And by the way, this new, I launched another brand, which I failed. I'll talk about that in a second. I'm grateful for that too, because I'm learning something. So I look at failures, I look at opportunities, I look at what happens in life as like growth now, right? Like, and if I don't look back 12 months before in my, like, let's say last year, I want to tell myself that guy was an idiot, because then I'm growing, right? And so
you want to be able to look back and say that guy was an idiot.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So now I understand people. I want to be a good human being. Chad and I just ended our coaching, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. It's like, because like, Chad, I don't have any problems. I don't need to talk about anything. We're good, Because like, I know if I have issues, I can work through them. I went to Joe Dispenza's meditation retreat. That was great too. I just feel good and at peace with myself. And money, all of this success is just a byproduct of doing shit I love. I love creating, I love building teams, and I love doing it again. And if I fail along the way, fuck it, I'll do it again.
I just had a big braingasm. Because what you're essentially saying is, like for a while, for years, you had the mental chatter of beating yourself up.
Imposter syndrome. It's like, I don't fucking belong. I had it all.
And now what you have realized is that everything that happened has led you to here, and here is great, just in a different way than if you had made different decisions.
Exactly.
One of that being, had you not taken chips off the table with Zesty, had you kept all of that money yourself, you may not have ever run into the point where you had enough negative mental chatter to go work on it to arrive at a place of peace.
Yep.
And internal joy. Both are great journeys.
Yeah.
Like lots of money, or still lots and lots of money and happy. Right? Like they're both great.
Yep.
Right? And you never know what the other path would have led to. And
Like, I know that I play this game of like, should have done this differently.
should have pursued that opportunity harder.
Shouldn't have had that relationship. Like, shouldn't have X, Y, and Z.
But if you can be happy with now, then everything just led as being context for getting to this place.
Yeah.
You mentioned going to Joe Dispenza. What was that experience like?
I mean, there are few people that have done it here, I know. Incredible. I mean, it's just the energy, the whole thing, right? Like, I've been into mindfulness for a long time, but man, I felt fucking great, and I'm chasing that high again. So I'm going end of next month, going again for his advanced thing, and then probably gonna go to December and his week long again. So I'm just gonna continue to chase it.
What is that high?
Clarity and like detachment from everything, in a sense. It makes you a good person. I just want to grow, right? So
Do you get that in your day-to-day life outside of those peak experiences?
I do. So I'll wake up, meditate an hour every day, usually 30 minutes at night. So it's kind of trying to stick to it.
Yeah. How is your life different after prioritizing the own internal experience?
Chaotic. Really fucking chaotic, because life...
Beforehand?
Not before Joe, but I was just thinking, like, before I started working on myself, right? Just because Chad, like, the self-growth I had with him was also significant. It would just be like, I'd let life run me, in essence. I'm reacting to life. Whereas now, like, it's almost slowed down. and you get to dictate.
Which
what
is
we're like.
hilarious because your life has sped up so much in the last year and a half.
Right.
That's hilariously ironic.
That's a byproduct.
Is it?
I think, at least.
Tell me why.
Work-wise, as an example, because I believe that's what you're referencing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, just career-wise, yeah.
I don't do much. I don't do much. I have great teams, and I try to focus on just creating stuff. So right now I'm working on More Than IT as an example, because I've got a team built out, a venture studio, working on that, creating an incubation ground where I would invest, buy back entrepreneurs, and so it's fun. But it's like all of the seeds that I put in the early days are now sprouting. So it seems like things have sped up, but things are, for me at least, the same in a way.
Do you think that as a result of pursuing that internal clarity and getting calm inside, that it allowed you to detach enough to be able to plant those seeds that were long term?
Maybe now.
Yeah.
Back then it was just like, there was a thing of right place, right time. I'm not gonna bullshit that, right?
Sure, but I mean, it seems like since you've prioritized that, you make much longer, more strategic
For sure.
decisions,
Yeah.
which may be slower in the very short term, but sprout and create faster compounding results. When you say you don't do much, I believe you, right? And I think you have prioritized that internal experience,
Yep.
which allows you to kind of be the conductor of your life rather than the actor in your life. And I've experienced times where when I'm letting life dictate me, I'm just in the chaos and I'm making more of it. And I think you going on this journey has allowed you to kind of pull yourself out of that and conduct more of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Am I projecting?
I make decisions that are more long-term focused now than, say the 16 where it's like, fuck, I'm gonna lose everything and I'm gonna make short-sighted decisions. So for sure, like high key, same thing, long-sighted decisions. Even being on the board, over the last year or so on Zesty, it's like got to see us making good, rational, long-term decisions. It's like, you soak that in.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So let's talk about Zesty, because you had this exit. Was it 2 weeks ago that it finalized now?
3, 4. I haven't even gotten my check
Time is
yet.
a human construct. I think you exited operations of that when you partnered with the group.
I was there about a year or so.
Okay.
And then when we brought in I was still involved, and then when we brought in the CEO, I transitioned. Well, I was always on the board, but then really took a board role.
What did you see happen? Because I think this was your first brand that crossed 9 figures. So what did you see happen in that ramp-up period between when you were at the helm and then the group coming in and helping to scale it? What did you see from the sidelines?
Trying to figure out how to answer this. The seeds that we created 2017, basically, I was also in the VMS category for humans, and I saw branded ingredients were big then. Brought that into the pet supplement space, and everything we did, we were the first. Allergy, multi, no one was doing it. And we innovated in a very clinically science-based and a fun-based way. That brand blew up right then and there, and everyone could have checked out. That brand had such strong tailwinds that it was kind of meant to be, in a sense. We went from 3 to 20, 25 to 55, and then retail came in, and then, like 2 years later, 100 plus. I've never seen, I hope to be part of something like that again, because it was like the perfect lightning in a bottle with great product market fit. When we exited, number one on every platform we were on. And so what the private equity group did that I probably wouldn't have done is when we brought in the CEO, they pushed for retail, which was a great fucking thing. So, we proved it out at Target and PetSmart, and that was one of the bigger, because strategics want retail proved out. And so, I created the online moat but they had the
Yeah.
wherewithal and the patience to create the the retail side of things, right? Which I may not have done given this was if I had kept it. And I'm so thankful that this happened because I probably would have sold for 100, 150, right? Taking chips off the table wouldn't have done retail because like Moise, you know, when your net worth is tied significantly, you want chips off the table.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So having seen that gave me conviction that anything's possible, having been part of that journey, right? It's all about mindset and how big you can create a company, you know, because like when I took chips off the table, our peers are exiting for 10, 20, $30 million. It's like, well, that's fucking pinnacle of success, right?
Yeah.
And then when I saw that movie, I'm like, well, anything's possible. And so high key, my aspiration, I want to create
When
the
you
next.
saw your peers exiting for 10, 15, $20 million, that made you say, oh, anything is possible?
No. That made me say I need to exit because that was a pinnacle of success
see.
at
Okay.
that point. But now seeing the Zesty movie, I'm like, anything is possible. Can I create $1 billion company? Yes.
Got it. So it gave you different context, like a different reference point for what was actually possible for you and in this space and in this industry.
Yeah, it's all mindset. You know, like anyone in this room can create $1 billion brand.
Okay, you keep saying that it's all mindset. Could you break that down into something that is less esoteric?
Oh man.
It's like we
Well,
say
it's
that all
just-
the time. It's all mindset. It's all mindset.
well, it's
How
just
does
like-
AJ actually?
It's just like
think
if you
about
don't believe you can do it, you're not going to do it, right? If you don't believe you can, if you believe that the limit, so when our peers are exiting for say 20 million on average, that's the height of
Yeah.
what I can achieve, right? But if you set your mindset to be a little bit higher, then no, I can create $100 million brands. You might act differently, right? You might do things differently. You might look at opportunities differently. Like when I start companies now, if it doesn't have 100 million or more potential, I won't even look at it from a product market fit. So, you know, like my filters are very aggressive right now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So again, that's what I mean. But you have to believe that you can do it to do it. Because if you don't believe it, it's not going to happen.
And I think it's important to note here, you didn't always believe that it was possible, and that's okay. Like you had some base hits and some strikeouts and a couple, you know, solo home runs
Yeah.
before you had Zesty and before you had High Key. Like you had to work yourself into believing that this was possible, and now it is.
Yep.
You've seen it, you've proven it to yourself. So now there's total confidence in going into that. And so $10 million projects don't interest you anymore. $50 million projects don't interest you anymore. But that was not always the case.
Of course not.
Right? Do you think it is possible to skip those steps?
Say that differently.
Do you think now that all your expectations are this is going to be a 9-figure brand, do you think that it would have been possible to collapse that timeline and how long it took you to get to that expectation?
Not unless I got lucky the first time and I saw the movie
I
the
see.
first time.
I see.
I think these were all good experiences that, I mean, even like the lessons I've learned over this past 7 or 8 years, from hiring to the retail, I don't know, it's just, I don't know if I would have done differently, but I guess it's like maybe it would have played out differently if I had succeeded early on, maybe.
But it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah. I'm going to go over to Q&A for mic runners in a second, but I did want to ask you, AJ, there's a handful of people in the room who have 7-figure businesses that are struggling with that same idea of like, I'm not sure that I do believe that it's a $100 million thing. Right? It's one thing to try, I mean, we're hearing two things in this conversation. One is like you have to work yourself into believing it. But the other thing that we're also hearing is sometimes you have to cut things
I agree.
and move on.
I agree. Who
So-
said that yesterday? Someone said it yesterday.
That came up quite a few times.
Yeah.
So I'm curious when you know it's time to like work yourself into doubling down
Or cutting bait.
or cutting bait. And I
Well-
believe you did this recently with
So I'll give you an example. I just cut bait. So I was bored, last summer. I hired the team out for Hikey. I'm like, well, fuck, I want to do something else now, you know? Because again, I love creating. That's my zone of genius. And so the plant-based has been on my mind, plant-based snacking, high protein. Took a couple macro trends, put them together, launched a brand. And I went all in early on, really all in. So like $1.5 million, $2 million in, we launched in April. 4 weeks in, I'm like, and I'm about to raise money from VC because, 3 to 4 million. I'm like, I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, man, do I want to take other people's money on shit I don't even believe in? Because there's 15 fucking puffs. We don't have a reason to exist. And I decided to call it quits and say, no, I'm not going to do a brand that will have headwinds from day one, especially when I'm responsible for other people's capital. And so that was, and I'm so grateful, again, I went through this journey because now my filter is a little bit higher as opposed to mixing a couple of macro trends and going after an opportunity. And I had a buddy of mine, you know him, he was in the VMS vitamin category. And I told him 3-4 years ago that I was seeing this, because I was seeing the same patterns I had seen in my skincare company, Jeremy. And I'm like, bro, take chips off the table. He had this confidence that no, he wanted to take it to 50 or $100 million, right? And I love belief in yourself, but you have to be honest about the opportunity you're sitting on and be a little bit objective, because it's okay to take $2-3 million and cut bait with that opportunity and go to the next one that might be much bigger, right? Instead of holding on and having this one-itis or thinking this is my only thing and having these aspirations that are a little bit delusional almost. And some entrepreneurs have that tendency.
Yeah.
And you've got to be, and I don't know how to advise where you're going to be honest, how to be honest with yourself. That just, again, comes with experience. He didn't listen to me, and he's going through that shit, same shit. But you got to make your own mistakes, I think. Advice doesn't do shit.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Where's the mic? Let's go here to start.
Hey, Jim. So first off, congratulations on the exit. I have some just people I worked with who were selling in the same category, and always looked to you as an example of what was working really well. And so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
My question to you is, it seems like it's kind of around how you know the size of the opportunity you're on, or how you identify an opportunity that's going to be a 9 or a 10-figure brand, something that's hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. You mentioned tailwinds. You mentioned kind of having something unique or a reason to exist. But I think a lot of us, if you're starting a new brand and you haven't had that scale before, hard to identify exactly how big you're going to take this thing. What's important about building something that's truly going to be big? Is it a unique product? Is it identifying the trends that you're going to be a part of? Or how do you look at that if you're going to start something new?
It's a fun question.
Are you solving a problem that a consumer needs, or are you creating something unique in the marketplace which doesn't exist? Could be, your brand, I don't know, product proposition, I don't know. But it has to, for me, it has to be, I don't want to be even the third or fourth puff in the marketplace, or I don't want commodity. I want to, so I'll just give you an example. We were category leaders and creators on Zesty. Hikey, same thing. And so from my mindset, I'm looking to not necessarily create category all the time, because you can always piggyback on something, but improve the fuck out of it. And give them something unique, if that makes sense. So like dog food, very saturated category. It's been on my radar for 3 to 4 years. I've never entered it because I could not find anything unique. Kibbles, everyone does it. It's overrated and garbage. Freeze-dried, same thing, commodity. So it's the only reason now I'm about to enter it because I found a couple of unique angles that I think are potentially disruptive to the category and that a consumer would resonate. And one might be 2 to 3 years ahead, but I'm willing to make that bet now. So it's hard for me to, I guess, answer that besides from my own
So
perspective.
there's solving of a problem and there's uniqueness in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of an example while you were answering, which is, are you familiar with truff hot sauce?
Yeah, I love
Like,
that.
It's fucking amazing, right? But there's 95 hot sauces on the shelf.
Yeah,
The only thing that is, and this has had,
that's a great example.
it's massively taken off, but it's just so unique,
Yep.
right? It's just this flavor combination of truffle and hot sauce to make something that just stood out. It was just so wildly different and 4 times the price as
Yeah.
everybody else. Like it was, there was no like lack of hot sauce. There was no one on chat rooms saying, I really wish there was another hot sauce. Like no one had this problem, but it was so unique in the marketplace. And I think the people, like I work with so many entrepreneurs who get stuck at low 7 figures. And they're stuck at low 7 figures because they pursued the marketplace that they're just getting a small piece of rather than creating something that was truly unique. It's riskier to do something that's truly unique. And the rewards are much greater when they're truly unique. So I was just thinking about that example.
I
It's
think that's a great example.
It was saturated market, but it was so different.
Yeah, because I eat that. I have that in my food all the time. I'm like, man, I wish I would have thought of that. Because it's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's like you're taking established analogs. So you're not educating people, but your truffle's so popular and loved, at least by me, that that's something really unique, right? So again, you can, like our cookies. There's nothing unique about it. Cookies are well known. We just made it better,
Could I ask kind of one follow-up there?
Actually, yes, please.
To dive like a little bit deeper into the product development and becoming a category leader or creating something unique, just like tactically or operationally for you, like are you partnering with people who are good at doing the product development, or is that something you're uniquely able to do to go out and find products? Like how do you do that?
Good
I
question.
find so for the food business, I found a person that was good at innovation, and he's in charge of that. I don't worry about it. I just tell him what we want, or our team tells him what we want. He solves it. We have a team of like 5-6 people are in R&D. For the other business, for Zesty, we basically work with Co-Man, and we had internal and external consultants working on the formulations and sourcing.
Let's go to Christy.
Okay, thanks. So I don't have a question, but more of something that maybe help the audience, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I have a love-hate relationship with AJ, just hearing him. But even though he thinks he's the innovation leader, I was actually in the market before him and was like, no one is doing a high food, like human food grade supplement, and like the market needs this. So I'm here to tell you how mindset really does make a difference, because I came in, it was my first like Amazon type business, so inexperienced, bootstrapped, didn't have any money, cash flow was an issue. And then the mindset, I came into the business with a scarcity mindset. I had to make it work. I had to, like, I wanted this to provide for my family. I had all these expectations, and created the first product. It was doing pretty well for the first product. It was doing like $8,000 a month. $8,000 a month, which for me, I was like, this is awesome. Created this second product and was just beginning to sell it. And all of a sudden, there's this brand Zesty Paws who like takes over, and I'm looking at their sales volume, and they're doing like $100,000 a month, and like came out like 2 months ago. And so that, like, because I had that scarcity mindset, like just that whole process of, I still was able to grow the business and have an exit. But so one, like the experiences from that, what I would say in listening to you, what not to do is like, you have to have the abundance mindset, number one. Number two, a lot of people are afraid, I think especially as new entrepreneurs, to trust other people to outsource, to bring on team members. You think, well, I'm building this. This is my baby. I want to have like the success in it, not realizing that if you would bring the right people on, you could grow so much faster, particularly like capital or figure that side out. So yeah, that's just the two things I would say is
thanks for
really
sharing.
helpful. And
Yeah.
I don't have any bad feelings for you, just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like you.
Wait, heck, will you keep the mic up here? I want to go over to Damien. Yeah.
What's up, AJ? I just have two questions for you. Number one, when you were launching, what was your primary acquisition strategy? And number two, what was the happiest moment of your journey and why?
Number one's too tactical. I don't know my business. I have good people. But obviously Amazon was our main, am my mic working?
You're good.
Okay. Was a main platform and direct to consumer now. As it relates to happiest moment of my life in this journey, there's not a moment. I mean, I like, you know, when the
You can't say I don't know to both questions.
No, I know.
That's not
Hold
allowed.
on. Like 4 weeks ago, when the 610 number was confirmed, and that number got increased at the 11th hour for various reasons, and then email came in, and the signing was 5 minutes away, it sunk in, you know? It sunk in terms of like, I don't know, I was trying to get tears, but it didn't come, but like, I was happy. I was happy in terms of like culmination of everything I've done, you know, being realized. But you know, this whole past few years, I've been very content, very happy. Obviously, there's ebbs and flows. I'm still a human. We still have emotions. So overall, though, I'm good this year.
What's so interesting is that the happiest moment was 5 minutes before the exit. Not when the wire hit.
Well, I haven't gotten the wire. That's October 1st or 4th.
Oh, so the wire hasn't hit yet?
No,
So there might be a happier day in a week or so. But like 5 minutes before it was official,
Yeah.
the excitement and anticipation of this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I once heard Tim Ferriss do a podcast, I don't know, with some sex expert. And they were saying how if you look at the studies of sex, the happiest part is the walk up the stairs. It's like this is gonna happen.
That was it.
And that's what a perfect comparison to what you're describing. It's like all of the joy,
Yeah.
the happiest moment is in that this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right? It hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah.
And afterwards, you're like, yeah, I'm ready for the next one.
Right.
The next one will be great.
Yeah.
Like, it's the anticipation of it that is the best part. It makes me wonder, like, can you manufacture that anticipation with the confidence and the excitement? Can you manufacture that to be in that state? Over here.
Which one?
Inez, whoever you're closest to.
Hey, Jay. Congrats on the success with Zesty Paws, albeit it wasn't, ideal for you. Two quick questions. First one, how's Zen doing? What's his favorite product from Zesty Paws?
You know my dog. How do you know my dog? Oh, that's scary. He likes dental sticks. I give it to him every morning, and he hits me if I don't give it to him. And also, I don't regret. There's no downside to that journey.
Very nice. Thank you. Yeah, my dog also loves the dental chews. Kills two birds with one stone, right? Cleans the teeth and tastes minty and refreshing for them.
I haven't tasted it, so I can't tell you that.
Yeah. The second question is, we hear this term product market fit a lot. It seems like it's a term that's thrown for when your product that you're launching hits a nerve and finds like exponential growth and success. I'm wondering what your definition of it is, and if you believe Zesty Paws and High Key, it hit an unforeseen or unmet, or like when you're doing data validation, did you
Unmet
know?
consumer need.
Yeah.
It's not inertia. Obviously, you can manufacture that.
Yeah.
And it works too, right? Like native deodorant, perfect example. I mean, were there natural deodorants in the market? Of course. He made it better, right? And so for us, it was just like we were literally solving a white space. And there was a cookie, in the marketplace for High Key as an example, but they just sucked. So kind of like Native made theirs better, we made ours better. Zesty was like, that was a different story. That was like everything we launched was a white space, solving the white space.
So that would be more of a category market maker in
Yeah,
in your
but the
opinion.
consumer demand was there.
Okay.
It was already there. So that was a great product market.
Yeah, you weren't manufacturing desire.
Exactly.
You're meeting desires.
That was unmet.
Yeah, very well said. We go over to Chad here.
Congrats on all your success. Your cookies are awesome, by the way. I like them.
Thank you.
Can you speak to how you scaled your headcount so quickly with talent while staying profitable? Because there seems to be a gap of when you hire really good talent, you might kiss some frogs. So there's going to be a lag time before there's an ROI on that talent. So
Good question.
So for the food business, profitability wasn't a key focus for the first year or so. So I intentionally overhired for a different revenue business. And, it depends. For me, growing and getting to critical mass, getting to retail, and becoming a category leader was more important than short-term profit. And so that's what I prioritize. And as it relates to kissing frogs, yeah, you're gonna make mistakes. Learn from it. Fire them quickly if they're the wrong cultural fit, and move on.
Manny, let's go over here.
All right, AJ. You mentioned, so actually, Christy mentioned something that triggered my question with respect to how fast you took off on Amazon. And I'm curious with Zesty, like, what was that process of taking product to market and creating that ascent so quickly? What were the critical pieces in that journey to make it go so fast?
Do you mean in terms of like hitting liftoff on the
Correct.
primary launch channel?
Correct.
Do you know what that was, AJ? Or
Yep.
do you have magicians that do it?
No. It was when we launched the products that were, in demand by the consumers, but there was like on Amazon, I'll give you an example. It was only joint and probiotics. So everything else we launched was kind of, we were there when the consumer needed us, and there was no one else. Sorry, Christy, you might be there. I don't remember. So allergy, multi, like everything, we that's why I thought we created a category, but it just took off.
But Manny, do you still have the mic? Would you clarify that question a little bit? Because
Yeah.
I think you're looking for something a little bit more strategic.
Yeah, so like,
Oh.
we talked to a bunch of folks that really know how to utilize Amazon really effectively, right? To launch things, to make things go. I understand in a lot of respects, categorically,
Yeah.
you guys stood as leaders, but functionally, what were some of those levers that you guys pulled to make it go?
I have a person
So
for
you
that.
have, okay, you
I
have,
have a
I don't know Amazon at
and
all.
and that person is a mystery person, or can you name them?
She's worked with me for 6 years.
Oh, it's in-house.
Yeah, in-house.
But like I've spoken with some members of your team, and it comes back to like the foundational pieces. It's like, can we get velocity through an audience?
Yeah.
Like, are there people to launch to?
Yep.
And how do we get reviews?
Yeah, exactly.
It's sales and
Same-
reviews.
same
like the
thing.
same stuff.
Same
and
things.
when you find a piece of that that's working, you
Yeah.
go harder in that direction.
Yep.
I'd be curious about when you're launching something new, because I don't think there was an audience for High Key when you launched it. Like you
No.
didn't. You didn't.
But there was demand for sugar-free cookies when we launched it.
Yeah.
What was the, do you know what was the igniter for it?
I don't know, besides the fact that like we had a great product, and then Igniter was just kind of to your point, let's get some social proof. So we launched to our IG, Facebook group, and all of that, and got good feedback in return. And then we just started ranking #1 for sugar-free cookies, low-carb snacks, everything. And eventually, like literally that product within 2 months was top 100 in grocery and beat Oreos and Chips Ahoy, and had stayed pretty much that way.
So there was some strategy in terms of like there was a Facebook group and like social media.
Yeah, exactly. And we had D2C at that time when we were throwing ads in the early days too.
Okay.
Which was having a spillover effect.
Yeah, so I mean you were hitting it from all angles in terms of awareness, right?
Exactly.
You were firing bullets in that gun.
Yeah.
With some advertising, with Facebook groups, with some social media. But it's not like these are mysterious strategies.
Yeah. Everything that everyone does.
And you can throw a lot down the chute to try to make a product that isn't going to take.
And
you
that
can try to
doesn't work.
force that, right? But that usually burns out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It was the fact that you had product market fit that made it possible for all of this to support that, which gave you the awareness to be able to hit top 100.
And then all of the tactics become that much easier.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it's like we love to talk about the tactics that worked for people, but they're completely worthless without
Good product.
without what you've built. Like there's a couple Amazon ranking services that I've been chatting with because I want to find some and make it a resource for our incubator members. And after speaking with a lot of them, I've seen a lot of their results where like they'll get you #1 for a keyword and then very quickly you flutter down. It's like it's not their fault. Right? It is like, does your product have the liftoff and the momentum to build? And it's so tempting just to be like, we hit #1. I guess we just need to spend more with that service. And like, so we stay there because we got a lift, but then it flutters down. Like, it means we got something internal that we need to solve. Like, it doesn't mean the product isn't great. It just means that there's broken pieces that need to be assembled there. There's only so many tactics that you can throw at something that just isn't getting liftoff.
Yeah. For sure.
All right, let's go over here to the corner. Just shout it out.
So I recently had an exit of a little over 8 figures business. And
Congrats.
I've got a couple of brands and I'm building kind of the same goal. My question is, the last business was just like a few partners. We sold it. We didn't hire out. And we didn't kind of decide, let's get it to this point, sell it, and be happy. My question is like, is my sight set too low? Am I like missing a big opportunity with having that be my goal for my 2 other brands?
So you had an 8-figure exit. Your goal is another 8-figure exit.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, like, am I selling myself short?
Yeah, am I like missing something big, like hiring out, scaling bigger, going to retail and all that? Or?
It's an interesting question.
What do you want? That's all that matters. It doesn't fucking matter what I want. Don't look at other peers, because if you look at other people, there's always going to be someone that's, doing better than you, and then it's going to make you unhappy. So if you're happy with a 8-figure exit, do that. If you don't like hiring people because it's a pain in the ass, and you don't want to get involved, and this 8-figure exit kind of gives you the means for your lifestyle, short-term and long-term. Continue to do that, but that's a question you've got to search for inside. And for me, like, I'm not chasing the 9 figures or whatever for the money. I like creating, and I want to solve problems that are scalable, that are more worldly, so to speak, right? As opposed to selling a spatula, which I don't want to do.
I would also comment on this as like, in 5 years, you might have all the desire in the world to build a big infrastructure and have a giant team.
Yeah.
I think we often try to project out what is going to be optimal for our lives, but you have no idea. Like, if you told me what my life was going to be 3 years ago, is not the same. Right?
Yeah.
It's impossible for us to project that out. So you might wake up 5 years from now and have a completely new set of desires than what exists right now. And so it's important for us to not just grow for the sake of growth. Like, that's the mentality of cancer. To just grow because we think we have to, unless there is desire and alignment behind what it is that we're growing towards. So If there's not desire to go build the big infrastructure, wait for that desire to build. And you might, in 10 years, say, had I built the infrastructure earlier, I'd be way richer than I was. But it would be impossible for you to do if you didn't have the desire in the first place.
And you can just keep on trying, 8 figures, and if you're sitting on a gold mine, go longer.
Right.
Just be honest with yourself. Is this the right point to sell, or can I do it longer for a year? And then before you know it, you might have a 9-figure business without even trying.
I think one of my most unhappy periods was after my 8-figure exit, and then going through this set of like, whatever I do has to be bigger than the last one. It just has to be. Ryan Dice told me once that I had second album syndrome, where after you have a band release a great album that's a hit, they often freeze in the creative process because they're like, what if our follow-up album sucks? What if our follow-up album is not well received by the audience? And so there's this like creative block that happens. It's like, we had this success, the second one's gotta be great. But like, all my favorite music is from bands who just keep playing, right? And they have duds and they have winners, and they just keep part of the creative process.
All right, let's do 2 more. We'll do Drew, and then go over to Ruth.
Awesome. Hey, AJ, I'm Drew. Thanks for being here. You mentioned a pivotal point in your life was when you started working with a coach. So I'd love to hear more about that and kind of what was the impact and what do you look for in a coach?
I can't speak more highly of him. I don't know how to describe him. He's got this structured program of 6 months, and I did that twice, where you work through every shit in your life from childhood, parents, whatever, and it's the unblocking that I had. And also, like, I remember module 7, still active listening. It's like, what the fuck? I didn't know what active listening was. And that was such an aha moment in building relationships. Because you're not listening, to respond. You're listening to be present and then just be curious in the conversation, right? So for me, I was not a self-aware person at all before 2016. Chad changed my life from the fact of like, I grew as a human being, I grew as a person, I grew in self-awareness. And so I think everyone should have someone that improves, whether it's a therapist, a coach, that improves their mental psyche and helps you grow as a human being, because that makes every part of life way better. Does that answer your question?
It does, yes. Thank you.
So it sounds like Chad had product market fit for what you were looking for. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, AJ.
No, right by you.
Hi. I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned you were kind of bored and you started a plant-based business, which is kind of my category. And you mentioned, can you elaborate a little bit why the differences of that specific product didn't work out in your mind, or it wasn't going to work out compared to High Key, and kind of the USPs on the differences between the two, even though it's slightly different category? I'm just curious.
So I want to dive deeper into this. Are you asking this question because when
Selfishly.
well, yes, but when AJ said we decided not to go into this category, did someone in your brain say, well, if AJ thought this was a bad idea, it might be a bad idea for me too?
Possibly, but it's more so, his experience, lends a lot of wisdom, like that maybe I can't see,
Sure.
and the people that analyzed it.
So when I wanted to create that brand, maybe it was my delusional confidence or the fact that I didn't really do competitive landscaping well. By the point we got to launch, I realized that there were so many competitors in this category. Our value prop wasn't dialed in. If I'm honest, our product sucked. And so we had inherent bias in there too. And I was at this point where obviously I needed to raise money. I didn't want to take other people's capital if I didn't believe in it myself. So it was a combination of too much competition, and then retailer is going to carry maybe 3 brands with similar value prop. So for me, when I go into food and bev, omni-channel lens is on, right? And if I can't take it into retail, you're not going to get value on e-com brand, in my opinion, in food. And so that was it. Just kind of my eyes open when we actually launched.
And I think it's important to note here, the first product they were like high protein puffs.
Puffs, yep,
Right.
and some chips.
Okay, and what you saw was that there were a bunch of different
I know,
brands.
and some were great. I'm like, fuck, this is great. Why do I need to exist?
Yeah, so you were gonna be another chip
Yeah.
and another puff.
And so just knowing what I know about your business, like it's the same industry, but one thing that's coming up for me is it's like it's one thing to say I'm gonna go into fried chicken and I'm gonna go into truff hot sauce. Same industry, completely different approaches. They're both food. So be careful not to compare just because it's a plant-based approach that it could be the same industry, but what you're doing is very different than selling high protein puffs.
So it was not an industry thing.
No,
Like, it
no,
was
no.
not even a category.
Plant-based is the hottest thing. You put plant-based on a deck, you'll get $40 million.
Switch is plant-based. We'll be doing a raise later this afternoon. Well, AJ, it's been a joy and a privilege to be part of your journey and to watch your journey and to see it at different stages. So you should feel very proud. And we are all very proud. Thank you for blazing the trail in this industry and for sharing this. Give it up for AJ Patel.
All right, buddy. That was fun.